In recent news of Valor FC ceasing operations and just an overall dark day for Winnipeg or Manitoba soccer, I thought there would be no better person to bring on the podcast than the first ever Valor FC manager in Robert Gale, who has a plenty of experience being a national team coach, currently the coach of Portland Thorns FC in the NWSL, and he has a lot of good feedback on maybe why Valor FC failed and if professional soccer will return back here to Manitoba. You got to check this out. Yeah, so just kind of talking about, just with the unfortunate news that happened last Friday, Valor's no longer in operation anymore. Obviously, you were and are always will be the Valor's first ever manager. So just kind of want to talk back maybe about the good old times at the start there. Can you maybe talk about your first season with Valor and how that looked like?
Yeah, you know what? Really exciting. Number one, what a privilege to be able to coach and be the general manager. But number one, build something brand new in a brand new league for your hometown and city. I mean, what an opportunity. And what I loved about that first year, there was Jeff Paulus, Stephen Hart, Tommy Wilden Jr., Jimmy Brennan, Bobby Smirniotis, people who had worked in all of their own communities, and we all had the same love, passion for Canadian soccer. We'd worked in so many capacities to try and help build youth programs, provincial associations, national teams, grassroots, coach education. And now we've got a chance to build football clubs. Where I come from, they're hundreds of years old. And when do you ever get an opportunity to build a club and in a brand new league and start something so new and so exciting? And we all had the same passion for it. And one of the things I saw early on is obviously Tommy had the Calgary Foothills, Bobby had Sigma. We were starting from scratch, but the potential of it was so endless. And we knew we needed to be out there in the community, connected, get all of the stakeholders on board. And I wanted to build a club that would stand the test of time. I wasn't interested in short-term winning, which would have been great, but we knew we had to build something bigger than ourselves and tap into something far greater that hopefully we could leave a legacy for Winnipeg and Manitoba soccer. And that was the aim. That was our sole aim. And the tagline for the league, I think, was for Canadians by Canadians. And I went straight into for Manitobans by Manitobans. We wanted Manitoba staff, Manitoba players, Manitoba administrators. We had a vision of what this could grow into and how we could work with all the stakeholders to make something great. And that first year was so amazing. I did over 150 community events in the first year alone. Didn't miss a supporters event. Heck, I even was rewriting the words to Country Roads to make it Valor Road so that we had a song. And it took a couple of seasons to take hold, but it was such a great time. It was so exciting. It was such a privilege to be a part of. We gave 8 Manitobans professional debuts that year. I mean, what an opportunity, what a privilege, what a joy to bring that to my hometown and have my daughters be able to watch games. I'd been a national team coach for 10 years already, and we'd never had a home game in Canada. They'd never been able to watch me coach at home. And that was true for so many players, right, as well. You had to go abroad to try and find a career. And that was what was so special and is so special about the Canadian Premier League. And then the Northern Super League is now we're providing opportunities that others like yourself never had growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big things too that like when I kind of look, and thank you so much for describing like, your first year with Valor and just how involved you're within the community. And that's the one thing I really wanted to hit home on. Like, and that's one of the biggest things when I heard the news on Friday, it just seemed like wasted potential. It's just, you said yourself, you gave 8 players their first debut. There's a lot of talent here as well. Like, I can name a few. Like, I'm a good friend with Tyson Farrago, for example. Like, he's a class keeper as well. I have really good friends with Raph Oween. You even got Marco Bustos as well, who's done very well for Pacific. Like, you got the talent here. Like, I mean, it's just such a shame. And I think, and that's like honestly one of the biggest things I think's been really missing in the community here at the last, especially like last 3 or 4 years, has been that community involvement. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, Rob. Like, I go to like community events here. I go to other soccer events across the city all the time, and some of the people here don't have just said we have a professional soccer team. It's one of those things where it's just like the work you were doing in that community really got everyone involved, and it's just such a wasted potential there.
I totally agree. And look at that first year, we averaged over 5,000. We had 10,000 home opener. I think it was 12,000 Canada Day. And they were paid attendances. It wasn't like Forge gave away 17,000 that first game. You know what I mean? We led the league in attendance, paid attendance. We only lost $100,000, which, if you think for a startup in modern day sports, and I know most sports owners, and I've been involved with ownership groups since, you have to anticipate in a couple of million a year over a few years. That has to be your minimum level of expectation. And we were way above that. And yes, COVID hit, but you talk about wasted potential. Who was the community connection once Damien and I left? Who were the people out there coaching in the community clubs, doing the Manitoba Soccer Association, the Rexes, visiting the northern communities, visiting the reserves, bringing in the, immigrant population, trying to attract students? All of the things that we had ideas for went by the wayside. And when you talk about Tyson Farragut, Marco Bustos, when our owner doesn't want to pay to the salary floor, let alone the salary cap, how can we compete? And that was the biggest thing. We never wanted equality with the Bombers, but we wanted equity. And to get to 27,000 fans a week, that's a 100-year-old organization.
Yeah.
And they've got generations of followers. And we were at 10 to 12 on occasions when marketed properly and supported by us, getting out and spreading the word. Imagine the potential. And if you wanted half the fans that you get at the Bombers, or even a quarter, you better spend a quarter of the budget. And we weren't even close to that. We were an afterthought for marketing, an afterthought for promotions. We became an inconvenience. And what I feel the CPL, if you talk about wasted opportunity, because it was Bob Young and CFL, they had to go to partners that they'd known and had worked with. And you missed opportunities, which the NSL is not doing. They're being very clever about the ownership, the marketing, the venues, the support. But what could have been a legacy for sport in our province became an idea by a bunch in a group of business owners who saw franchises in other leagues develop rapidly, like the MLS, saw an opportunity to form the Canadian soccer business and monetize the game. And they thought by the end of the 2026 World Cup, which is coming to North America, that the franchise value, instead of 2 million, would be at 25 and 30 and 50, like the MLS. And they grossly underestimated what it would take to build that and develop traditions and culture and values. And I think the sad thing is they felt it would be number one purpose, tax write-offs, benefits, other things, and a way to monetize value quickly for their own organizations, instead of understanding what the game of football is really about, our football. And that is community, connection, passion, people, families, legacy, history. It's the beautiful game and the world's game for a reason. And when you've got owners that don't understand that or grasp that, it's very hard for them to connect and invest in the way that was needed and necessary. And particularly in our case at Valor, I feel.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the big, when I was talking to other people in the community too, I think one of the big things that came up too was just like you said yourself, like the marketing. Like some people have even comments to me saying like they didn't see one piece of marketing for it online or even on billboards and things like that, so they weren't even aware about the games. But also too, I think after, and this is my opinion, after your departure there wasn't really much Winnipeg players representing the club at all. Like I think Raf was probably the one that was really the main one, but other than that, like I can't really tell you after like the 2022 season. So it was kind of, it just felt like very disconnected. And I know that you're part of like the Red River Rising community as well, and they've been sharing their thoughts on social media and stuff like that. So it just seems like it was such a disconnect. And I feel like you said, this success doesn't just happen overnight. You have to put passion, you have to be invested in it, and you have to put the effort in the community. Like trust me, there's not a lot, like there's other CPL teams currently right now too that are going through some struggles. Like I can name a few. Like York United is going through its third rebrand, and it's going on here, and they've been struggling. Same thing with Vancouver. Vancouver's been also having their issues too, and it's just one of those things. There will be struggles, and like you said, like you got to have ownership that's really committed to the project. And like you kind of said, it felt like it was neglected or just a burden. Honestly, if I'm going to say so myself. Um, I guess the big thing here is like in your opinion, do you think professional soccer will return back here to Winnipeg or Manitoba even?
I honestly think it's the potential is there, and we saw the potential like that first year. And I know COVID was an interruption, but like I said about equality versus equity, they were giving our players leftover concessions food for post game meals, and you can't tell me they did that in the other half of the organization. We had no support staff for physical conditioning, strength and conditioning, no performance staff for monitoring, all of the things that you'd have in other clubs across the league, no video analysis. And they relied on, because myself, Damien, Patrick, Tony Mazza was a kit man for the first year for free, like completely free, volunteered his time. They relied on the goodness of us and our desire to get the project instead of investing. And how do you keep players like Bustos, Farrago, Froze, um, Pena, who've been and played abroad, Carrero, these guys. I was so delighted that we managed to help Raf stay in the country and become a Canadian through my immigration lawyer, funnily enough.
Mm,
And he became Mr. Valour after I left. He's so committed to the community, and he's the one you see out there. But it takes time, it takes investment. And yeah, if you neglect it, it's never going to work. And obviously, they stopped paying the bills the last couple of years, and it was propped up by the league because they wanted 8 teams until the Quebec team come in and says, "Why are we paying for another franchise?" It doesn't make any sense when they're trying to build their own. So I think we showed in that first year that it's possible, and I think at the right venue with the right investments and a model similar to the NSL where you seek local partnerships and ownership as well as a major investor, then you've got the opportunity. And I know as well as you do, Keith, because you're right there and in the community and out there in the soccer, there's enough passion for the game.
100%.
There's a multicultural, diverse society where people come from countries and have emigrated from countries where football is the number one sport. And that is the key. So I think it's viable. I really, really do. I'm in discussions to help hopefully bring an NSL team down there in the future. There's myself, there's Desiree Scott talking to that league ownership right now, talking to Diana Matheson about what it would take to build a team. And they've said they want to be in the middle of the country. It's so vital for the development of the game that you have representation coast to coast, which was our original aim. So I am filled with hope for the future of that because I know, number one, the fans, the passion, the support. I know the community. I know that there's talent when given the opportunity. We proved that in the first year. And to your point, there's players like Kyle Hebert that we tried to get in, and obviously he went to St. Louis, but played with me in the national teams. Kean Strohs, I tried for 3 years to get in. They finally got him in this season. What a difference he made to the team.
Absolutely.
But untalented players underneath that need this opportunity and need to see heroes on their doorstep, the same as rural Manitobans benefit from the Winnipeg Jets. So I believe it's possible. I hold that deep in my heart because I wouldn't have got involved in the project in the first place. If I didn't believe it was possible, I wouldn't be, keen to help out in the future if I didn't believe it was possible. I do believe in the people of Manitoba, the talent of Manitoba, the support in Manitoba. I believe in our community in Winnipeg and the wider outreach. And I was privileged to be there for 15 years and do something I love, from Manitoba soccer to the national team to Valor. And I really want to see it succeed.
The same thing here, and like you said, like we definitely have like the community and the support to make this professional soccer here like be a thing here in the city. Like I can even use another example. Look at the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Like that project. Like it's just such wasted potential. And honestly, Rob, like it's really tough for me. Like Friday was really tough because like when I was coming up through going through youth academies, and I got up to university level, I could choose at least University of Winnipeg. Like my goalkeeper coach, I don't know if you know Pedro Darza.
Very well, very
Yeah,
well. Great lad.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I had an opportunity to look for, okay, I can go play at university.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're looking for players right now. If I'm a player going through the ranks, I graduate. For men's at least, there's what options are there? U of M doesn't have a team. UW's team disbanded. You got CMU, which granted they made it to nationals this year, which is fantastic. St. Boniface, but Red River doesn't have one either. So a lot of these players now, you have to go abroad, right? Like, I mean, unless you go to like Brandon or you go to other places like that. Like, realistically, for men's soccer here, like, what a lot of options do you have at home, right? Now the professional team's gone, so honestly, it just feels like for at least for the men's, it doesn't seem like a lot of hope, at least for the university and that professional level. And I think that's something we really need to address here, personally.
I totally agree, and I think you've got youth clubs, you've got structures, you've got academies that are being funded well, and great participation. You only have to look at the community centers, mini kicking numbers. We are the most popular sport in the country, and even the people at the Bombers used to joke that they had about 650 registered players in Football Manitoba, and there was 17,000 in soccer. It's a no-brainer. We can support our football team with 27,000 people, but there's only 600 youth playing it. Where you got 17,000 youth playing it, and we can't support a professional, what I call football team. So, yes, I totally agree with you. I think from the associations, the organizations, private equity, there there's money in Winnipeg. And we need those people who are coming to the point in life where maybe they want to see their money invested. And like the arts, sport is such a good avenue for youth, for disadvantaged children. Soccer is not an expensive sport, or shouldn't be. And we have to find ways to provide opportunities, because it helps with health, it helps with crime, it helps with so many outside factors. The benefit of sports, the amount of business people and business owners who I speak to who say they look for people who've been in organized team sports growing up because of the life lessons and the values that teaches them. These are the future leaders of our city and our province, and that's who we need to invest in.
You hit it right on the nail there. Like, honestly, we call it the beautiful game, right? It's the beautiful game where we all can speak a universal language. Like, I play in many different cultures. Like, I can go like every Saturday or Sunday morning. I would go play at Dakota Collegiate Field, and there'd be like 80 or 90 of us. They'll play pickup games, like King's Court type thing. And like it's a lot of it's the African community. You also have a lot of you have like the Hispanic community as well. Like, it's a bunch of different communities coming together, and they just want, what do we want to do? We just want to play soccer. We just want to have fun. And honestly, that's just the whole joy of it. And like you said too, it has so much more social and just more, there's so many more impacts for development of just us as human beings and just overall in general. And again, for me personally, like, I grew up playing hockey, and my parents can tell you that that hockey especially can hurt the wallet pretty good. Like, I mean, my parents spent thousands of dollars, and when you compare like the equipment costs and things like that to soccer, like, realistically, what do you need to play soccer? You just need a kit, shin pads, and cleats, and a ball. That's it. And you really entry level into the game. And like you said, the number of players that we have, again, like, it's like almost 10 to 1. It's almost, it sounds like there. So again, like, it's where's that gap? What's missing from that taking the next step, right? Like, you can see even hockey, like you kind of said with football, like, we have lower attendance with kids growing up, but that, I feel like the big thing that we're missing is when they graduate from the youth level, what's that continued development from when they take the next stage to the professional level? I think that's where we're really missing out on.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Look, accessibility, affordability are absolutely two things. You don't have to be 6'8", 250 pounds to be successful. And look at the world's greatest player in Lionel Messi. And that's the beauty of the game. And that's why it's the world sport and played all over the world in so many countries. And we do need to find solutions. And I think it's beyond that 14, 15, 16 competitive pathways, university routes, and it opens up so many more opportunities. It's for the refereeing, the administration, the therapy side of the game, the sports science. There's so many avenues and outlets, and it creates an industry and an ecosystem of its own worldwide. And that's where we need people, the investors, to understand the outreach of it. And again, if you do it properly, I'll show you the NWSL here on where I'm working right now in the Portland Thorns. Our ownership bought in for 68 million US dollars. We average over 20,000 fans at every home game, top in the league for attendance, highest attendances in the league all year long. The value of the Denver Summit franchise came in at $250 million. 2 years after our franchise was bought for 68 million, and we are the crown jewel in the NWSL.
Wow.
So if there's proper investment across like-minded people and full investment, and not just in it for short-term gain, there is opportunity with sport. And you see it worldwide. You see the North American investment in teams in the Premier League now, in France, in Italy. How do we get that investment into Canadian soccer? And that's what I'm really positive about the Northern Super League, and what Diana Matheson and Christine, who's from Winnipeg, funnily enough, the president of that league, they understand that it needs to have resources and finances beyond just short-term measures, because if you're in something for short-term success, it's going to lead to long-term failure. But if you're in for long-term success, then everybody has an opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's just really it. You need to have someone committed to the project that's a longer term visionary of that, and I definitely agree with that. And I think, fingers crossed. I mean, I did hear rumors that Diana Matheson and them visited Raf Tafio. I did hear that. I'm not sure if that's for sure true, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we can get an NSL team. Like, I mean, it's been a huge success with that league this year, and honestly, I'm great to see that not only is it a fantastic league to watch, but also the players are being compensated like pretty generally really well too. So it's showing that it can be a very sustainable market here in Canada. And honestly, way too long for a professional women's league here. Honestly, when I first heard of it, I'm like, why hasn't this been here years earlier? So honestly, it's great to see. Now, Rob, there's one other thing there's one other thing I wanted to get your opinion on, and there was always constant chatter about the venue of a professional soccer team here. So I know what they call now Princess Auto Stadium, pretty big stadium, obviously. Do you think that was the right choice for the venue, or do you think that should be at like a more of an intimate type of field? Like, I know people were saying maybe Contafio could be one. Do you think that was a hindrance to the club at all, in your opinion?
Um, I think it became a hindrance. The numbers that dwindled after the second COVID season, because, and again, I'll go back to who was running the club and the community connection and out there. Were they doing the same things that I was in year one? I don't know. I wasn't there, but I have my suspicions. And if you can't get a full stand, at least, then you get into those environments and it lacks the feel of a Halifax. We went to Spruce Meadows, Halifax. Those games were intimidating. We never used to worry about going to Forge because of the same thing. There wasn't the same atmosphere. Pacific, great atmosphere. And it felt intimate, it felt local, it felt connected. And if you've got a facility that you build in that 6,000 range, but it can get to 10,000 and host the finals and those with some minimal upgrades, I think that really is the right market, because you need to grow into a 15,000 stadium, a 20,000 stadium. And people go to games. Look, we're passionate about the game. We go to a game and we'll watch the football and not pay attention to anything else. But for a casual supporter, what I used to love was the songs. And I'd go to a Jets game and I'd honestly be bored out my head, because it's "Go Jets Go" or "Dodgy Keeper." You know what I mean? They're the only two chants. You go to a soccer game and it's songs and it's atmosphere, and it's like going to church. It's a community. It was my church. You're singing and you're bouncing up and down, and you can have a great time at a soccer game. And that's what I feel. It became worse and worse, and the group argued and argued to have more soccer things. And you need tifos, you need smoke. If you come to a Portland Thorns game, you feel like you could be in a Boca Juniors game. You feel like you could be a Milanese derby. You know what I mean? There's real fan culture there, and you have to embrace the fans, because the fans pay the bills. You're doing it for the supporters. And that was one thing I never lost sight of. And every interaction, whether it was out in the street, signing a shirt, give the supporters your time, because they are ultimately the ones who are paying our wages. And the lifeblood of our support of the game is the fans. And I don't think they realize that. And I feel in a big stadium, it was for tax write-offs or benefits or purposes and community use by a community-owned club. Well, how come the community weren't informed of the financial plight? How come the community weren't asked to help? And instead, I feel the community has been blamed, which is the most ironic of all uh, statements, to blame the fans for not coming when the management and the ownership should be driving that. So, yes, I feel ultimately they were the vehicle to bring it here, and we can't forget that. But was it the right decision, or was it rushed because of their relationships with people already existing? And if again, if you learn from the Northern Super League, they're building it in the right way with the right people and the right investment at the right venues with the right target audience. And I think you'll see it flourish because of that.
I 100% agree. And just kind of targeting back to what you kind of said there, just kind of like the fall is kind of being blamed on like the fans or the community here. Like one of the quotes that really irked me from Wade Miller, specifically said, he said, "We had passionate fans, not enough of them." And I'm like, that is like, that I'm not gonna lie, that really pissed me off because I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, no, it's a lot more than that. Like you can even go to anywhere in the community, you can see that there was such a disconnect, and apparently they always said they always have suggestions, reach out to the club, and always try and make suggestions how to make it better, and they always feel like they're ignored. And if you feel like you're not connected and you're not putting results on the field that are winning, you're gonna have low attendance. I'm sorry, it's just what it is.
Honestly, astounding. My daughter put a post on Instagram, which was probably the one that hit home the most for me, and what that community and going to the stadium was for my girls, because they could see dad coach at home and they knew how hard we'd worked to build that. So if there wasn't enough fans, how did we get 10,000, 12,000? When they opened it up to schools, which we'd been suggesting for years, we got 11,000 fans this year at one game with the right initiatives. And Damien and myself put together programs. The new Canadians we wanted to target. We said about going to the student union and the Freshers Week and giving free tickets to new Canadians, new students. Those initiatives got used by the Bombers and discounted tickets for the Bombers and never for us. And yet they were our ideas. And those are the frustrations we have, where there was idea and desire. The majority of staff who worked for Valor alongside Valor were Bombers employees. And the focus dictated by the head of that organization was Bombers. And I remember a great employee, Michelle Lissel, got hired and then fired. Steve Drieger, hired, fired, because they cared more about Valor and football and what we were doing than the Bombers. And they were no longer a part of the organization and got dismissed for whatever reasons. You can speculate. But for me, when you don't have the people working in the organization whose sole focus and aim is to attract those supporters and bring in schools, after schools, community clubs. I did a club day every single game and spent between an hour and a half before the game and an hour talking to the young players and the clubs and the community, signing autographs, taking photos, every single home game to try and get fans into the stands. And we built these club nights. And I know for a fact they went away after I left. You have to have the people in the organization driving a desire to go out and find those supporters, because they are there. You can't tell me there's not enough fans of football in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, in Canada. Look at our national teams. Look at the successes everywhere else. That, for me, was an irking statement. And then I read my daughter's posts and others who were so connected to the club and what it should have meant, and the history and Valor Road and why we went to visit it and what it meant to us to bring a football team to the province. And that for me was a low, low blow.
100%. And it's just odd as well, like considering, like, don't get me wrong, like Valor's, it's had some tough results over the years, but this season generally was like one of its better ones. Like, look, they even got against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Like, they're able to put in good performances there. I was there at the game, and they end up coming away with the draw. Like, it was such a positive, like, it was just so positive being there, and all the fans there were just so positive about the team. And then, especially coming up on a World Cup year in 2026, like, you feel like this, if you're gonna coming off the momentum that you're having, like, this would be the year that you feel like you would try and capitalize on that. I'm just really confused by the timing, honestly.
I honestly believe, and from what I've heard behind the scenes, it should have happened 2 years ago because it's been off of the Bombers' payroll, and it's been because of the grace of the other teams in the league to roll with it and to see it through to 2026, which was when franchise evaluations, all of these things, we had the world's eyes on Canadian soccer. And now what a black mark and a stain, especially on our home city and province, that this has become when it's never been under more focus. We can honestly say that. And yeah, honestly, I feel, as I'm sure you can hear, everybody's frustrations. I feel like 4.5 years of my life have now led to very little. And you say, right, you should better to have loved than lost, but it feels so raw and painful for me and my family. And my family's still there. Terry's up there on telly every day. Our kids, Hayden, Ashlyn, Jack, who came to the games and still desperately want success for Winnipeg and Manitoba. That's my hometown, and it's so sad. I'm with you. I'm feeling the pain, and especially the timing. But realistically, it's been propped up by the other teams, and I think the Quebec team came in and said, "Wow, we're paying for two franchises." I don't think I signed up for that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also another thing that really kind of irks me too. And again, I just want to let you know, like, no, like, um, the community here definitely knows the effort, like, in the basically the overall connection you have with the community here. Like, it's not forgotten, and that's why, like, I wanted to have you on the show here, just to kind of show, like, it really hits home, just like on the loss. And I think as a community and being a part of the community here, one of the issues too that, like, you just said yourself, 2 years now, club's been in dire straits. It's been the league's been covering it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some reports about it, but it was very hush hush. You know what I mean? Like, how come this wasn't brought out to the forefront earlier? At least having the community, like, aware of what's going on. Because personally, like, I couldn't. I honestly, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize they were on the brink of that. To be honest.
Yeah, and again, if you go back to the responsibility of leadership or management and a community-owned club, I want to keep going back to that because they should be answering to our community. But it feels, and having experienced it personally, it's a community board. There's perks for being on it. It's fun to be on the Bombers board, and what a great thing for your resume. Where's the accountability to the leadership? And having been inside it, I can tell you that it is run singularly and it is not community run. So the funding, the taxpayers' money, the write-offs, all of these things, I hope that there's a bigger microscope into how it has reached this stage and why now the community is being deprived of a team, and the future leaders of Manitoba no longer have this to aspire to, because it shouldn't have got to the stage where within 3 days the team has just disbanded, the club shop has been emptied, the websites have been taken down. It's just a complete erosion of something that 3 weeks ago fans were cheering for, and less than a few months ago 11,000 people were in the stands enjoying. I don't know how that is allowed to occur. And this isn't, people can say sour grapes. This isn't sour grapes. I'm privileged and honored to have been a general manager and a coach at this club. I was super grateful and thankful for the opportunity. I wanted to continue that journey and development of the football club. And ultimately, my job was to get results. People can say we didn't quite qualify for a playoffs under my reign. Let's not forget the first year there was no playoffs. The second year was a bubble. And the third year, I got dismissed in a game before we played York that if we won, we would have been in playoff position. Now, the 2 years after I left, they finished dead last. Facts. And this year there was a slight resurgence. So were the results there? But no. And again, that has to go down to investment, leadership, management. And were we resourced and set up for success? And if people feel that's sour grapes, I'll accept that. But I've had success in the places I've left since. I had success with the national teams before that, including going to the 2 World Cups. And we weren't greatly resourced there. But for an organization to allow it to disband in the manner it has and the way in which people, players whose livelihoods were informed, and how the fans have been treated with such disdain and even blamed ever since, leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, not just myself. And I'm lucky I've gone on to bigger and better things for myself. I've been very fortunate. I'd like to say I can't complain. I get 20,000 fans every week at my games. I'm in a great spot, but it pains me greatly that that is the legacy that has been left for my hometown's club.
Yeah, and yeah, rightly so. And you just pointed that out. Like even today, like I went to go check out like the Valor Instagram page today, gone since Friday, deleted, gone. Would there be any sale of like merch, like any like jerseys, things like that? Apparently, there's none for sale. Fans can't even go buy anything like that. Even even like what I'm thinking here, when you when the Winnipeg Jets first left back, I don't know if you're hearing of it. It was like '96. There was still like a farewell tour, like that type of thing. Like it was like the team and the fan base could at least say goodbye, at least in that way. But then overnight, it's just disappeared without a trace, gone. And then it's like no, it's the community's fault, and it's like, and especially with how the season went, I'm just coming as a fan, like as a supporter. You make these big signings, like you bring Rocco, like Romeo in, you bring in Keon Froze, like you said, fantastic player, and he's played over in Europe, and you're putting good results in. It just seems like it just really has baffled me, and that's why I'm just like it just seems so unfair to the community, and it's just as a fan, honestly.
I I felt it seemed unfair when I was involved in it. Like I said, equality or equity, just if it was managed with the same care and attention or even desire as the Bombers and was resourced at the appropriate levels, we would not be in this discussion. That is a simple home truths from me who lived it and fought every day for it to be better. And I'm devastated for the fans. I'm like my family are fans. I'm a fan because I wanted this club to be 100 years old and to come back, and hopefully I had visions of me being an Arsene Wenger and 22 seasons at the club. You know what I mean? And I didn't get that opportunity. Fair enough. They had to make that decision. They felt that was right. I don't think it worked out how they hoped. I certainly don't think it was for the betterment of the game in Manitoba, in my opinion. But yeah, I am heartbroken in the way that it is ended as it has.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just hope it's not another closing chapter. Hopefully, it's just another chapter in a long history here for professional soccer here. And I really kind of want to touch on just about like your departure. I think it was in 2021, if I'm correct. Correct? Was it 2020 you left the part of the club?
Yeah, September 21.
Yeah. So like I'm kind of confused by that because if you kind of like look over results wise, like don't get me wrong, like you need time to put in good results and to get good on the field. And obviously with limited resources you have, it's quite hard to do that. You're fighting an uphill battle. When you were at that time removed from the club, was it kind of a blind side? Like how can you give me some of the background why you think that happened?
Um, yeah, look, let's put it in perspective as well. I never got a proper season. The first year was a 10-game season and then an 18 or 16-game season, I think it was. We never had a balanced schedule. You played some teams 5 times 4-3, very brand new league. It had to learn its ropes. And not an even number of teams. Second year was a bubble. We were a win away from Pacific to go into the final, and we actually had a massive injury at centre back. Again, AJB, and we go down and don't make the final game. Halifax ends up getting in ahead of us. We were that close to the final in the bubble in PEI. We start the bubble in Winnipeg. We're on an unbelievable run. I've built the squad. I'm really proud of the players I brought in. Joe Savoy, now Montreal Impact. Rocco Romeo, I brought in. Julian Dunn, Fraser Air, the stalwart in the league. Michael Petrasso, QPR. Keep naming them. Andrew John Baptiste, the Beast. James Pantemis, who's with me here in Portland at the Timbers. We had the talent, but we weren't resourced. And I had to use loans, and I had to use opportunities with other clubs and my connection through national youth teams. But I couldn't keep the players because we're never going to pay the same wages as Forge and Cavalry, and even Halifax had a clever route of getting housing for everybody. We never did that. And we had to put housing into the budget just to meet the salary floor, not even the salary cap. In a salary cap league, we were at the floor. So those were the constant battles behind the scene. But the one thing I was committed to was the community, Winnipeg, the bigger soccer picture, the Canadian soccer landscape and developing. We came out of the bubble there. We lost Andrew Jean-Baptiste. Because we don't have the funds or resources, they were never going to replace him for me. So I lose an international top-level centre-back. And it took us a while to rebuild that. And we had Galan go down. We had Sabara go down. We had a lot of injuries. And they were just coming back in that September. And we were going into that York game. We'd just beaten Ottawa in the Cup. So we were in the quarterfinals of the Cup. It was a handball that ruled us out against Forge from going on and making the finals of the Voyagers Cup that year. So there were lots of pieces in place, but there were beginning to be signs behind the scenes of cracks. And Damien and I, if you know anything about us, we don't get bullied. We don't stand on ceremony when we feel there's something to be said or needs to be improved. And I don't think that was well received. And they can hide behind results, but the results got a lot worse, and they stuck with a coaching staff beyond poor results. So was it our connection to the community? I can't answer those questions. I was called into a youth meeting to discuss the long-term future of building an academy and was dismissed. And worst of all, I think the worst part about that was I didn't know it was coming. I was told that morning before 8 a.m. I was marched out of the building. I didn't get to say goodbye to the players. I didn't get to say thank you to the community. I was told to sign agreements. And I had no closure to the group of players that was fighting for us. We just tied Cavalry in my last game. And we were going into a York game where we think they're very beatable and had a track record of beating them in York that puts us in the playoff position with 6 or 7 games to go. So bitterly disappointed. The 23 players on the squad that year, every single one of them reached out to me that day, thanked me. You don't get that in organizations usually, the connection we had with the players, the community. And yeah, I never got to say goodbye. I never got to speak to the players. I was marched out the building and my job was done. And that was the worst part of it for me, just that non-human, non-feeling dismissal. And it's not been the same ever since, is it? So I'm the only pleasure I take out of it is all the players, Galan, Matt Silva, Sabara, Gallardo, all these guys reaching out to me this week, Dylan Carrero reaching out to me, Tyson, just the posts that I see, the fact that we gave Pena, Sacramento, Farrago, O'Heen, Moosey, who's killing it in the Canadian Premier League, all of them the opportunity to play in Winnipeg in front of their friends and family. That's the legacy that I'm going to take from it. And it's that and the connection to the fans and the support still that keeps a smile on my face.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, you're having those players reach out to you and give positive messages, and just, you gave a lot of the hometown talent here an opportunity to build on the careers, like you said now. Like, again, Moosey's having a fantastic season, and what a player he's turning out to be. I'm hoping he can go, just keeps going forward and maybe reach the highest levels of Canadian soccer and just maybe even abroad. And again, it's just Rob, I know this week, especially this past week, has been a tough time on Winnipeg. It's going to be a little bit of a dark period here for Winnipeg soccer, Manitoba soccer in general. But um, I just want to say thank you again for joining us here today, and just kind of giving your time just about your reflection on Valor. And I just want to also highlight the good times. And I mean, I guess that was one of the big things too. Even in a period of darkness like we're in, getting to hear some of those moments too. And I guess before we kind of go here, I guess in your time with Valor, what was like one of your proudest moments with the club?
Oh, you know what? Singing that national anthem on that first game against Edmonton, two sides of the stands filled. I think we had five Manitobans in the starting lineup. What a privilege. My family was there to see it. I love Valor because I could go to the game and it felt like 7,000 of my closest friends were in the stands. It really felt like that, and that's a unique opportunity. And I'll thank the previous owners for putting their trust into me, and believing in the vision we had to get it going, because it was such a great opportunity to be able to build and start something from scratch, from the name, the values, the paint, there's so many things we did behind the scenes to get it up and running, and took on maybe 8, 10 jobs. And Tony, Paddy, myself, Damien, Rogine, James Silver, the people who committed their time to the game day things, the volunteers, those memories last long time after medals and wins and losses. You remember those times, and going to the pony corral after games and celebrating, and just being out in the community, working with the football clubs, kids coming up in your hometown, singing for a coach with yellow hair, signing autographs. What an opportunity. What a privilege. What a great time in my life to try and give something back to our city and our community and our province. And really, really proud and privileged to have that. And I thank all of the fans like yourself who believed in something bigger than ourselves, and what we could have been.
No, and again, I'm just kind of speaking for myself, and maybe I'm part on behalf of the community. Again, thank you so much for just all that hard work you put in. And again, like you said, from the ground up, you had 8 different hats, and like you said, I'm wearing one of the original jerseys here and kits, and this has always been in my closet for quite a while. I got other kits as well, but this will definitely not be forgotten. And this is a representation of all the hard work you put in, the staff, everybody. And let's just hope, fingers crossed. I mean, hoping we at least get an NSL team here soon. Hopefully, Dinah Matheson, Desiree Scott, please bring a team here. And you never know, maybe another men's professional soccer team here come through. And hopefully we can kind of see Winnipeg soccer here flourish again. And it's with figures like yourself. I know you're doing a fantastic job there where you are in the NWSL there. And I definitely got to go check out one of those games. 20,000 fans, and it sounds like a roaring crowd. I was actually just in England myself. I was in England and France. I went to a Watford game. I went to a Tottenham, Manchester United. And this might upset some Canadians, some Winnipeggers. Football matches are a lot more fun than hockey games. I'm just saying. So
100% agree. And no, I'm right there with you. If I can give any hope to your listeners, we are having discussions. I will contribute any expertise and effort that I can, always, to the community up there, to try and help bring professional soccer back to the province that the fans and the community deserve. And we're a hearty bunch. We survive winters. I'll be back up there for Christmas, and we'll rise again. We've had dark times before. We've had difficult times, but that's what Manitobans do. We rally behind each other, and anything I can do to help that in the future, I will wholeheartedly commit to. And I firmly believe we will bring professional soccer back to Winnipeg again sometime.
glad to hear it. And I love the optimism. And I'm glad to hear you missed the -40 winters here. um,
Look, maybe just the family, Terry. But
fair. I guess just before we kind of end off here, is there anything like, I know you're currently coaching. Is there any other projects you got going on that you wanted to mention or shout out before we end it here?
oh no, I'll keep some under wraps for now, and we'll watch this space. But look, once again, privileged to be doing a job that I love and passionately care about and developing the game. And yeah, I'm excited for the projects that I do have in the pipeline and trying to give back to, and again, give back to something bigger than myself, which is what football is. It's a game for the people, and I'm just very lucky to do what I do and appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today.
Absolutely. Well, again, it's a pleasure having you on here, Rob, and you're always welcome back to the podcast if there's anything you want to talk about in the future. For those, make sure you go check out what Rob's doing currently. He's doing a fantastic job with this team in Portland there in the NWSL, of doing bits there. Just always just a big supporter here and advocate of Manitoba soccer. So again, we'll be back for another episode of the River Football Podcast coming soon. But as always, this is the biggest podcast that we've had, and I'd like to thank you, Rob, for doing that. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next episode.